Hello everybody and welcome to another podcast on the Arts Cafe. I'm your DJ, Steve Jones. You're very welcome, guys. Today we are talking about the old 1970s to 1980s and just etching into the early 1990s TV series of Dallas. Dallas was a TV series that dominated every household across the globe. Now I'm going to take this from an Irish angle because we the Irish in the 1970s and 1980s were not a very rich country. The TV series Dallas, set in a county called Braddock in northeast Texas, we had a very rich oil-bearing family called the Ewings. It was all centered around them and their multi-millionaire ranch, South Fork. Now, let me briefly go through the whole family of the Ewings. As I said, briefly, for those who may not know how incredible this series was. But to watch it from a point of view of an Irish person was fascinating, because we were watching how the dirty rich live. And so, in this family ranch, mansion South Fork, you had the head of the family, the daddy, the dad, the father, Jock Ewing. And from seasons 1 through to 4, he dominated the entire kingpin, sort of alpha male of the Ewing family. If something went wrong, if any member went astray, he set them a line, along with his wife. But he had little ticks, like he made sure everybody was together at the table at 6 p.m. to have their dinner after a few drinks from about 5:30 in the lounge. Everybody was to be at the table by 6 o'clock and have a dinner and relive the day in conversation. Sometimes those conversations got a bit wayward, but Jock Ewing was the man. Now, the pilot season of Dallas was only 5 episodes. Not many people realise this, but it was only 5 episodes. But that took each household by storm, because during those 5 episodes we were introduced to a very intricate, fascinating world of a rich oil family. Jock Ewing's sons were very interesting, to say the least. Now, the entire family, offspring of Jock Ewing and his wife and their spouses, lived in this mansion, South Fork. So, first of all, the eldest son was J.R. John Ross Ewing. Jock Ewing is actually John Ross. That's his name, John Ross Ewing. But he's known by his friends as Jock. And then his son is John Ross Ewing II, hence John, beginning with J, Ross, beginning with R, J.R. Ewing. Played by Larry Hagman, fascinating part. Younger brother then was Gary Ewing, who had, from the word go in season 1, we never met him. We were told he had ran off when he was a lot younger. That's the storyline that was presented to us. And then the younger son still then was Bobby Ewing. Now, J.R.'s wife, Sue Ellen Ewing, lived with them in the mansion South Fork. And Pam Ewing is Bobby's spouse, wife. But the interesting thing is that Bobby's wife, Pam, is a brother of a guy called Cliff Barnes. So her name was Pam Barnes, and her brother is Cliff Barnes. Now the interesting thing is, we were presented and introduced in the first season with a backstory of controversy fighting over the oil company Ewing Oil. So apparently Jock Ewing, the head of the family, the dad, started off the company. Dallas was set in the 1970s, so it was set in real time as we were watching it. But apparently the backstory was Jock Ewing founded the company with two other guys, his brother Jason Ewing and his friend Digger Barnes. But what happened was that Digger was a drunk, and his brother Jason had a bit of a drinking problem too, but was always fighting with his brother Jock and with Jock's friend Digger Barnes. So what happened was, in season 1 we were just told Jock Ewing, this is what's presented to us, that Jock Ewing tricked the Barnes out of his share of Ewing Oil, and then he became an even worse terrible drunk, and he eventually straightened himself out from time to time, was able to have a family. He had 2 children, Cliff and Pam, and so Jock and Digger were always fighting and in turmoil with each other. So later now in the 70s we have JR, who's not quite the head of the company but almost being passed down by Jock, and Cliff and JR continue the row throughout the rest of the seasons of the fighting for this oil company. Pam married Bobby. That brought the Ewing and the Barnes family together as in-laws, which did not help the situation and caused nothing but fighting throughout the entire thing. So later on then we have Gary comes into seasons 2 and 3 and 4 along with his wife Val. Now we get a backstory there that they had a daughter Lucy when they were very young, and JR didn't like Val, so he chased her out of Texas and Gary felt very sore because his wife was being chased out, so he left. But Lucy, their daughter, stayed with them, so she remains living with them in South Park. And then we have Ray, the ranch hand, the head of the ranch hands. He's the ranch foreman. Later it is discovered that he's actually became part of the Ewing family. He's Jock's long lost son, strangely. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So from seasons 1 through to 4, Jock Ewing, as I said, dominated the family, but by the end of season 4, the real actor, Jim Davis, who played Jock Ewing, he kind of went into ill health, and he announced that he was leaving. So they wrote him out of it he went down to South America to work on an oil company to do what's known as wildcatting in the 1930s to discover oil. A lot of oil men apparently in the 1970s and 80s like to go back to the 1930s vibe of the wildcatting trade, looking for oil in the makeshift way, and not just sitting in an office somewhere running a company, but being out into the oil fields and looking for new oil. So Jock wanted to do that in South America and left his wife and family there, said he'd be back in 3 months, but apparently he died over there in a helicopter crash, which set Dallas on a spiral turn of amazing turns of good drama. And during seasons 1 through to 4 also we had the great Who Shot JR, which went worldwide as well. But Jock Ewing died at the end of season 4, which caused turmoil from seasons 5 through to 8 of JR and Bobby fighting then who will run Ewing Oil. Of course, in the end of season 8, JR kind of wins that whole battle. But things take a turn around because Bobby Ewing, at the end of season 8, tragically dies in a hit-and-run accident by his sister-in-law, Catherine. So Bobby's dead. It ended on season 8 where Bobby all of a sudden died and caused turmoil for the whole family. So we were now on to season 9, and apparently this entire season, we didn't discover it until the following year, but the whole of season 9 was actually a dream scene. The entire season was Pam, Bobby's wife's, dream. And that didn't go down too well with the audience. And they didn't like it. The ratings dropped through season 9. The fans, now at the time there was no internet, so the fans wrote letters and literally picketed outside South Fork, bring back Bobby. So the producers were in turmoil and wondering, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? So what they did was they returned with season 10 with the intent to bring back Patrick Duffy as some form of actor returning to Dallas. What would they do though? Would they bring him back as an evil brother? Would they bring him back as a doppelganger pretending to be Bobby? Would they bring him back as just a plain lookalike to taunt Pam and the rest of the family? They were literally stumped at what to do. And Larry Hagman, who plays JR, was discussing this with his wife, and apparently she said that the whole thing was just a dream. The entire whole thing was just a very bad dream. And Larry Hagman had often made the statement that during that year the storyline was a terrible bunch of scripts that no one liked anyway. So why not get rid of it and dump the whole thing by saying, oh, the entire thing was just a dream? So how would we do it hiding this from the audience? So what they did was they actually, and this is the truth, they got Patrick Duffy, who played Bobby, to be in a soap ad. The actress who played Pam, Victoria Principal, had previously done ads for Lux soap, and she had got very famous doing these ads because her bikini, apparently, when she was using this soap, was very revealing, and it appealed, we'll say, to the male population. But she had become very big doing the soap ads. So to fool the audience and fans of Dallas, they actually put out placards all over different cities in Texas and in Hollywood that Patrick Duffy will now be doing a soap ad like Victoria Principal. This is true. And so they set it up where it was a soap ad, and he was in the shower and he was washing, and he would, because there was newspapers there, there was journalists there to make sure, is he doing this ad? Why is he doing this ad? Oh, well, because Victoria Principal did a soap ad? I don't know. But literally he would be topless. Obviously he was a male, that was okay. He would have his back faced to the camera, he'd be washing, he'd turn around, hold the bar of soap in his hand and say,